Okay, so it's just after lunch, so I'm guessing some of you are feeling a bit sluggish, maybe. At least it's nice and cool in here. So I'm just warning you that this is an interactive session. Okay, there's about 12 slides, that's it. And most of them are instructions for you to do stuff. Of course, it's okay for you to pass. You can pass on the exercises, but you might be a bit bored if you do so. So just to warn you, this is an interactive session. And we're going to start with a question. So what I'd like you to do is talk to the person next to you about a current challenge you have at work. Just for 1 minute. Holy shit. So make sure you switch if you haven't already. Welcome. They're just talking about a challenge they've got at work. Talk to someone about a challenge you've got at work.
Me?
Yeah, with this guy.
He's my challenge at work.
Great, talk to him about it. What kind of challenge? Okay. Okay, if we can finish that. Okay. Don't panic, you'll get time to talk more about your challenge very shortly. It's just to warm you up. Did anyone not manage to talk about a challenge? No? Okay. So, how many of you talked about a problem, something that's not working very well at the minute? Just hand it up. Yeah. What about making something better? So something that's already great, but you want to make it even better. Who talked about something like that? Oh, just one of you, two, yeah. That's about normal, and that's because of something called negativity bias. Yeah? So this is a real thing. We're much more in tune to talk about things that aren't working well than are working really well. But there's some problems with that. You know, I started with an organization, and I did something called discovery, where people came to me with all their challenges. You know, for 3 weeks, we had a massive mural board, had 1,000 post-it notes on it, and it was all challenges, and this is what they came up with. Okay, we've got a strong foundation. That's like one of those ones where you try and make it nice when really, you know, that's the best you could come up with based on what they gave you. You've got practical application, things that slow us down, and lack of clarity. How inspiring do you think that is when you're going through a change, and these are the type of things that you come up with? Not very, right? So what we want to try and do is move to something that's much more inspiring, something that we can drive the organization forward with. And those that were in my case study last year, for those that were in Agile Prague, will remember my client Agile at the time and the outcome work we did there. So here we had our way of working. And these are called, by the way, auditory perspective measures at the bottom. So these are great when you first start with an organization, when you haven't got any real measures yet. You can go to Alex Slowly's talk this afternoon if you want to know what measures matter. But for me, when I first start with an organization, I use these kind of things. What will we see or hear in 6 months' time that we don't see or hear now as a starting point? We have clear prioritization, seamless workflow, and skilled and engaged colleagues. So we've gone from that problem statement, so things like lack of clarity, what am I going to do with that, with something that the organization can actually use to drive progress forward. And some measures. There was actually a lot of other measures underneath here. These were the highlights of where we're going. Really inspire the organization to try and be the best they can be and drive themselves forward. So we're going to teach you a couple of models that you can start using with your clients straight away to try and move them from that problem state, or the challenges that you started with today, to an outcome. And I'm going to give you a couple of recipes that you can do to try and get there really quickly in the next kind of 20 minutes. How does that sound? Woo! Yeah, it's after lunch. We all want some fun and activities to do, right? Okay, maybe some of you. Okay, we'll see how we get on. So the first model I'm going to pick is evidence, inference, impact. So evidence is what you see or hear. So if you were to play back whatever that challenge is in your head, you'd be able to see or hear those things happening. So if you had a video recording, you'd be able to watch it back. It's the actual evidence of the situation. We then have inference. What are you making up about what you saw or heard? What are the stories in your head? We call this thing inferences because it's the biases that we've made up over the years which get in the way. And this is where a lot of people stay, right? In this inference phase. This is where most drama in your organization comes from. Because I make something up different to what you make up to what someone else makes up. And so bringing those out in your organization is really useful and valuable. And the impact. What happened or could happen as a result. So we've got evidence, inference, impact. So let's just give this example. I'm trying to get you to the practical very quickly. I came to your session because I enjoyed session last year as it was a real case study. By the way, if you do want to hear a real case study, there's one next door at the same time as me. I won't feel offended if you want to leave and not join in with the fun interactive session that we've got going on here. Inference. I thought this year's session was going to be similar. Impact. I'm disappointed that this year you are doing more of a workshop. I wanted to relax after lunch. Alas. So, what are you going to do? You're going to have roughly 5 minutes. You're going to talk about the challenge you discussed earlier, and you're going to use some of the interview questions that I'm going to give you in a moment to find out the evidence, the inference, and the impact. And then you're going to switch. You're going to have to self-manage your time. I will try and let you know when half the time's up. So, how's that going to look? So I'm going to guess that most people were in that inference state in the middle. So evidence, you're going to try some of these questions. What did you see or hear? What did they do? Can you give me an example? Those sort of things. So try and make it reality and not just what you're making up in your head right now. Then, if you do need to get the inference, then what did that mean for you? What was that like? What were you making up? Are good questions. And the impact, what impact did this have? What happened next? Then what happened? Try those out. So I'm going to leave this up, so don't worry. You've got about 5 minutes, so in your pairs, 2.5 minutes each way, try and find out all 3 sections from the challenge that you discussed with that person earlier. Start talking. Let's see. Are we ready? Oh, wow, that was like a Mexican wave. It started off over here and went all the way across. I feel like we need to do a Mexican wave now. And back again, and back again. There we go, wow. Whew. So, summary. The famous Michael Jordan. If you haven't seen the documentary on Netflix, I think it's called The Last Dance. Really inspirational. If you accept the expectations of others, especially negative ones, then you will never change the outcome. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? No? No, I think we're done then if there's no questions. If you use that QR code, you can connect with me. I've got this like Flash V card thing going on that I'm experimenting with. I think you're good.
Now there must be somebody, we've still got 5 minutes here. And John is a very interesting speaker. So, I know that there's somebody here who has an interesting question for John. Huh?
There we go. Fred's managed to get one.
Right, so on one of the previous slides, you mentioned that when we have a problem, we should know where we want to get to, and then how do we want to get there. My observation is that often people only focus on the first part, so we have a problem, and the last part, which is what do we do about it, and forget to even stop and think about it, like, what do they actually want? Basically, I would like to confirm if that's just like my maybe skewed point of view, or if that's your experience as well.
Well, I generally work with leaders, and I get two types of leaders. You are correct. Ones that deal with problems and tell me all of the things that aren't going right, and ones that have already come up with the solution, right? We must implement X framework, we must do this, this is the challenge. And you need to deal with them in different ways, slightly. So when someone comes to you with a problem, that's great. You can ask them, what would you like to have happen? And that steers it nicely towards the action, because once you've got the outcome, then you can come up with a list of experiments. So if you didn't come to my talk last year, it's online. Do you need an Agile coach, I think it's called? So on Agile Prague YouTube, watch that. That's a case study of bringing this stuff into reality. After you've got your outcomes, then you can do your list of experiments. If you've got a leader that already starts you at action and says, these are the things I want, then you have to go, and what will that give you? And that will move you back, right? And when you've got that, what will that give you? Then what happens? Those sort of questions to find out the root behind why they've jumped to that solution. So there was a session next door earlier about being curious. So curiosity is really important, and not jumping to contempt. So instead of saying stuff like, safe's really bad and it doesn't work, be curious as to why that leader has said that safe is the solution. What are they trying to solve by doing that? And then you might get somewhere. But you're not wrong. Very few leaders without any training, and going back to Pete's talk this morning about very few leaders who've had training, will start to think in outcomes. But when leaders do, then we start to see a real change in organizations.
All right. Well, let's give John another hand. That was good, wasn't it? And John, your Ozzy Osbourne Memorial bat.
When he has his hand up, we should do the same, so I do the same.
Yeah. Every time you see me now for the next 2 days, hands up.
All right.